Hello everyone, Kilted Gunsmith here. Look, I got a phone call the other day and I kind of want to sit here and talk about it. Hold on. Honestly, when I got this phone call, I thought it was some type of joke. But then I quickly realized that it wasn't. So an individual contacted me and saying, hey, I just bought this rifle, had a scope mounted to it, had it bore sighted, but they would not sight it in for me. I said, okay. He wanted me to sight it in for him at 100 yards. And if that was something that I would do. And I told him, yeah, but there's no need. He goes, what do you mean? I said, sir, that's something that if you have access to a range or, I'm assuming that it's a hunting rifle. He goes, yeah. I said, okay. If you want, go out to where you're going to go hunt, right? And set up a target and shoot it and work the scope to where you need it. And he just kind of gets quiet. And I said, sir, have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever, worked with a scope? Have you ever, He goes, no, he goes, I've never been hunting, right? He goes, this is my first gun. This is the first time of me having, a scope. He goes, I've shot before. I've shot a friend of mine's 30-30. That's why I went out and bought a 30-30 just like he is. Got the scope that he has on his, so on and so forth, but I just don't know how. And I sat there and realized that he was serious, because listening to him on the phone, he didn't sound like a young man, but he didn't sound like an old timer either. He sounded about my age. Okay, so I'm going to do this video just in case there's anybody else out there that has the same questions and issues. Okay, so yeah. All right, so we're going to start off with just explaining scopes. Now, scopes have powers. Now, what do I mean by powers? I don't mean, they can move things with their minds. They have x-ray vision. It's not what I mean. You'll get them with it's like a 1 to 4, and this one's a 3 to 9, a 5 to 12, whatever. Okay? What that means is it starts off at a 3 power and moves all the way up to a 9 power. And what that basically means is you're zooming in on the target. Okay? So if you're shooting at something relatively close, you don't want 9 power, because then you'll be so far up close that you can't see where the target is, because all you see is the target, right? But then again, you don't want it at 3 to where a deer sits here and looks like the tip of this pen, right? Okay? So that's powers. Now, starting here at the rear where you actually look in, you'll notice that this moves, okay? This is for your eye relief. Now, what does that mean? Your eye relief is how far back it is to your eye. So most people who mount scopes, whether they're smiths, some gun shops will do it, they'll have you have this screwed in all the way, right? Mount it and have you look through it and say yes or no, right? Now, if you're sitting here and go, well, it needs to be a little bit closer, but one of our mounts is right here on the turret where my thumb is, we can't move this back anymore. So what we can do is we can actually fine tune it or move back more with this, okay? That's putting that very, very simply. Now on some are like this one that has this whole back piece that does that. Others would just have this rubber ring right here as the piece that moves. Either one will have a locking ring, right? Which is this center ring, and it's kind of old and stuck, but you see there's now a decent gap in there, right? Then we're going to move forward and we have turrets, right? We've got one on the top and one on the right hand side, okay? And we are going to unscrew these, okay? Now, when you go to sight in your rifle for the beginning of deer season, you need it just like this, okay? And if you look closely, if I can get it to focus, there we go. See, we have an arrow over here. And in the middle of that arrow, it's left. It has an L, meaning left, okay? And then it says 1 click is at 100. Okay, that's kind of dirty. This is an old scope, okay? 1 click is 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards, okay? At 100 yards, okay? Then you look at the top one here, right? Once again, we've got another arrow, and it says up and 1 click 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards, okay? So now you've got this mounted to your rifle, and whenever the season starts, what I tell people to do is get the exact same ammunition, okay? So let's just go with 30-30, right? Get Remington core locks if they're out and about now. I don't know if they've started producing those or not yet. But we're going to get Remington 30-30 core lock. Pick up 2 or 3 boxes, okay? Make sure all of them are at least the same grain. You know, you don't want to pick up a box of 150 grain and a box of 180 grain and that kind of mess, okay? Because that's going to throw your scope off, right? Because the 180 is heavier just a little bit than the 150, thus it's going to fall a little bit sooner, okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to have 2 or 3 boxes of that, and you're going to take it out to the range with you. Now, I just kind of made up a target here because my targets that I use are actually quite large, and I couldn't move it around in front of the camera very well. So I just kind of made one, right? So with your target, you're going to have an actual bullseye, right? And then you're going to see all these different lines. These lines mostly, let me say that again, mostly are going to be 1 inch apart, right? So 1 inch by 1 inch squares. There are some out there that are like 3/4 of an inch, and there's some out there that I've seen that are like 1.5 inches. Measure it out beforehand so you actually know the distance, okay? And that's going to come in sooner. What you're going to do is you're going to set this target up at 25 yards, okay? You can tape it to a box, or if you've got, you know, something that you can nail it to, whatever. Try not to nail it to a tree, because then it's a rounded surface, right? And these are no longer going to be 1 inch, right? Because it's going across a curve and math, right? So I usually just use a box. You know, get you just a large shipping box or something along those lines, right? Tape it up. Then you're going to go out and shoot. You shoot 3 or 4 rounds at that target. Look down the scope, bang, right? 3 or 4 times. And you are going to sit here and see, and I'm just going to draw on here some X's where they all land, right? So let's say they all landed there, okay? So we know we have to come up 1, 2, right? And over 1, 2, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our turrets. These slots will usually hold 1/4, right? just a standard U.S. quarter. And you're going to turn this to where it is, get this is where it gets difficult, okay? This is one click is 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards. So what is that going to be at 25 yards? Okay. Turn it 1, right? Turn it 1, right? Shoot again. Now let's say we shoot again, and now they're all sitting right here, okay? Now our elevation's pretty good, right? Now we just need to get it over a little bit. So we go back, we get it over a little bit. Now they're all in the bullseye, right? Great. You're going to get another target, a brand new target, okay? And either take it out to 50 or 75 and start the process all over again. Just remember what your yardage is compared to whatever yardage is on here. Because once you finally get out to 100 yards, well, which is what most people will set, a 30-30 on, then if I just need to move 1/2 an inch, that it's going to be 2 clicks, right? But the reason that I say to start so close is it's easier to come up close and dial it in, right? Because if you're 2 inches short at 25 yards, right, 2 inches low, then that can be 8 inches at 100, right? And if you're just using a regular sheet of paper that you printed off a target offline, chances are you might not see it, right? Okay? They might hit just right here, and you're not seeing it. Now you're getting frustrated as hell and are having to sit here and figure out, do I need to come up? Do I need to aim over here? Where do I need to aim? Because you're not aiming at the bullseye, right? But if you start at 25, aim at the bullseye, 9 times out of 10, once it's bore sighted, it will get you pretty daggone close, okay? And then when you go back to 50 or 75, you're going to start it all over again, get it dialed into that range, and then you're going to go to the 100 and dial it in. So you see that you can expand a box to a box and a half of ammunition just sighting in your scope, right? Just saying. You might be good to where when you went out at 25 yards, you blew out this bullseye. If that's the case, do not move anything on your scope and go ahead and move it out to 50 or 75 and do it again, right? And now, if you do it then and it's just, 1/2 an inch low, hey, whoever did the bore sighting did a really good job, right? And then when you get out to 100, you're there and you're not even going to spend 1/2 a box of ammunition at that time, right? But I always like to teach people on the worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario, it's going to be bad off and you're going to be spending 8, 10, 12 rounds just to get it on the bullseye at 25 yards, okay? I hope all of this makes sense. Yeah. Like I said, I got that phone call in, and that's a phone call that I was not expecting, because I sometimes forget, I take a lot of this stuff for granted. When I got into hunting, I had my dad and an uncle, that helped me, right? And I know most of us who, are watching the video right now of me sitting here pouring with sweat, because it's hot and humid in Mississippi, right? Most of y'all watching probably had that uncle or aunt or mom or dad or granddad or whoever to really show you the ropes, right? But we also have to sit here and remember that sometimes some people aren't raised up into the field of firearms. They're not raised in the field of hunting. They're learning, right? So what? You might start learning at 30 years old. That's fine. You're learning, right? And we need to be good ambassadors of the community, I guess is what I should say. And that means taking time out and actually helping people, okay? So anyways, I'm going to sign off. It's about to start raining, which means my audio is going to go to absolute hell down here. So yeah, till next time, y'all have a good one. Hello everyone, Kilted Gunsmith here. Look, I got a phone call the other day, and I kind of want to sit here and talk about it. Hold on. Honestly, when I got this phone call, I thought it was some type of joke. But then I quickly realized that it wasn't. So an individual contacted me and saying, hey, I just bought this rifle, had a scope mounted to it, had it bore sighted, but they would not sight it in for me. I said, okay. He wanted me to sight it in for him at 100 yards. And if that was something that I would do. And I told him, yeah, but there's no need. He goes, what do you mean? I said, sir, that's something that if you have access to a range or, I'm assuming that it's a hunting rifle. He goes, yeah. I said, okay. If you want, go out to where you're going to go hunt, right? And set up a target and shoot it and work the scope to where you need it. And he just kind of gets quiet. And I said, sir, have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever, worked with a scope? Have you ever, He goes, no, he goes, I've never been hunting, right? He goes, this is my first gun. This is the first time of me having, a scope. He goes, I've shot before. I've shot a friend of mine's 30-30. That's why I went out and bought a 30-30 just like he is. Got the scope that he has on his, so on and so forth, but I just don't know how. And I sat there and realized that he was serious, because listening to him on the phone, he didn't sound like a young man. But he didn't sound like an old timer either. He sounded about my age, okay? So I'm going to do this video just in case there's anybody else out there that has the same questions and issues, okay? So, yeah.